Okay, so it is time already for week 3 of our journey through African American literature. We are still in the period of time of Africa, the Middle Passage, and slavery. And this week we have the same setup as last week, where we have the introduction to the week, we have the reading assignment, the discussion board assignment, and I have the same materials for project 1 with the specific step you're taking this week. This week we do have 2 videos. One's about 19 minutes and one's about 22 minutes. They're both lecture videos that I recorded a few years ago. And the first one discusses Africa, the Middle Passage, and slavery, and it's like a historical context and the literary context of the work that we're doing. And the second one is particularly about slavery in the Americas. So both of those are important videos to watch. However, next week, we don't have a video lecture scheduled. So if you don't have time to watch both of them this week, you could watch one this week and one next week, whatever you can kind of work out for yourself. But do watch them. They are full of information that you can use that will help you to put the readings into context and understand better the themes, the ideas, the effects of the literature that we're reading. So this week's assignment is just one reading. It's a narrative of the uncommon sufferings and surprising deliverance of Britton Hammond, a Negro man. That's the title. Many of the works that you will see have long titles like that. This one was first published in 1760, and when you go to the link, you'll see that it's not super long. It's like 14 pages of reading. Yeah, it really is pretty interesting reading. And then after you read, or as you read, jot down, 3 things you think are important, 3 questions you have, and 3 ways you can connect to the reading. This is something that I came across just, an hour ago. So these are some videos that I don't know if any of you are familiar with Crash Course History. I've used it with students that I've taught privately in the past. And they have a new segment, a new series called Crash Course in Black American History, which is really well done. And so I linked to some of the episodes that go along with the things that we're reading in the next few weeks. So you can check those out if you want to, if you're interested in more of the historical background. And then they do have one specifically on Phyllis Wheatley, which I found very interesting as well. So yeah, I highly recommend them to you for another way of looking at the history of the time. So this week on the discussion board, you'll be discussing the readings from last week. And what we're doing this week is I have for you a quote here from the Norton Anthology of African American Literature. In the realm of the spirit, most whites were content with African American claims to equal rights to God's grace, as long as African American salvation did not entail a radical redemption of the white-dominated social order. In the political sphere, however, whites presume themselves alone to be the arbiters of rights and privileges. So basically, that quote is talking about how in the colonial times, whites were okay with Blacks having access to God through Christianity, but only insofar as the white-dominated social order was maintained. So the politics, the social privilege, the social power, the political power had to remain in the hands of white people in order for white people to be satisfied with Black people having access to God through Christianity. So the question is, in what ways do this week's authors, so that was Lucy Terry and Phyllis Wheatley and Jupiter Hammond, in what way do this week's authors appeal to a white Christian readership while at the same time asserting that Black Americans had feelings to voice and stories to tell to the people at large? How do they challenge widespread European prejudice that Black people were incapable of literary expression? So that's what you'll discuss on the discussion board in your discussion groups. And those discussion groups will be open shortly. Right. So this is just the reminder that your initial response should be at least 150 words, and it needs to be in good, well proofread, well edited English. And then that's due by 11 a.m. Thursday. And then your responses to your classmates, to your group mates, posts and the discussions that you have, I will be looking at after 11 a.m. next Monday. You guys are welcome to continue any of these discussions beyond that, but that's where I'll be looking at it for giving you the appropriate credit for the week's discussions, as far as the grades are concerned. But just because the week is over doesn't mean you can't continue the discussion. You can either continue it right there in that thread, or you can have a new thread, or continue it in your new discussion thread, whatever works for you. So storytelling, we're still working on that. The signifying monkey is the one that I had you read, and I had you have some of the Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox stories. There are many other African folk tales available. You can look them up. I know if you Google African folk tales, you'll come up with many. If you are someone who is maybe intimidated by creative writing, you don't think you're a very creative person, and you're kind of intimidated by this assignment, let me give you a suggestion. Find a tale that you like. What is the theme? What is the main plot story of that tale? Take that and give it your own spin. Make it your tale. So a lot of these folk tales, because they were vernacular tradition anyway, we can't say one person owns them. And if you go to a different group of people in Africa, you might hear a version of that tale. It's not exactly the same. It's just like we have many Cinderella stories from around the world. The basic idea of the story is the same, but how it's told is different. So this will be you giving your spin on this particular tale. So you don't have to come up with something completely original. If you do, that's fantastic. But if you don't, that's okay. Take something and give it your own spin. And then as far as your larger narrative, think of it as trying to comfort each other on the slave ship. Think of it as mothers telling their children to keep them safe and calm and whatever, after working in the fields all day, or whatever. Don't make it too difficult. Just make it a nice, simple a narrative, a nice simple setting, and that don't worry about going overboard with it. And then this week, so last week I asked you to begin thinking of your ideas. This week you need to continue to develop your story ideas. You kind of want to have some sort of an outline, whether it is an actual outline or a list of notes and ideas scattered on a piece of paper, or if you're better at talking, maybe you make a voice memo. You're not going to submit that to me this week, but you need to have it, because next week is when you're actually going to start writing your piece so that you can record it. And then we're going to do the workshop the following week. And then it will be time to revise and submit. So this week, by the end of this week, you really need to have set what you're going to do so that you can do it next week. And if you need any help at all, please let me know. And this is just that schedule again. This week you're going to, oh, I should adjust that because that was last week, but this week you're going to continue brainstorming, getting your ideas together. Next week is drafting and then workshopping, and then you'll revise and submit. So as a recap, what you have due this week is your initial discussion board post by 11 a.m. on Thursday, and then your discussion board responses. And remember, these are in your discussion groups, not the whole class. Those are Monday by 11, and your reading journals for the Britton Hammond slave narrative are due on Monday, again by 11. And that is our overview for this week. If you have any questions, any concerns, please let me know.